One of the best parts about Civilization games are the DLC. Not only does it help upgrade the game, but it adds a lot of new flavor and variety. In the past, right, it used to just be a leader with a civilization attached to it, but now we are able to have multiple different civs that maybe don't necessarily have a leader as well. So we are going to be taking a look today at 5 Antiquity Civs that we here at Civ Haus are hoping will be added in the future. So let me know what you guys think about that in the comments below, if there are any Antiquity Civs that you would like to see added to the game, and also make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this type of content and Civilization content in general, as Connor and I are trying to come out with new and exciting things for you guys to enjoy as we continue to cover Civilization 7. So let's hop into it here. I wanted to be clear that a few of these things are going, or these civs, excuse me, are going to be civilizations that maybe you've never heard of. Maybe they are even in the game already, which I think is, you know, not the worst thing in the world. You know, and maybe as well, right, they may kind of fit, at least one of them slightly fits into the exploration age in terms of the timeline. Generally speaking, it seems like they consider, you know, a lot of the Antiquity Civs to be before the year 1000 BC. So, or AD, sorry, AD, yeah, 1000 AD. So, there will be some, well, one specifically that will probably, you know, kind of straddle that line, but it feels like it fits a lot better into the Antiquity Age, near the end of it for sure, but at the end of the Antiquity Age. So let's hop into it here. Our first one is going to be Sparta. Yes, we're going to lead off with Sparta, and initially this was going to be number 1, because, at least for myself, the person making this list, right, I feel like Sparta would be such an amazing addition, and one that I would really love to see added to the game in a very serious way. I know we have the Greeks already, but why can't we have Sparta separately? Because Sparta did consider themselves to be separate for the most part. We lump them in together because of where they, you know, well, where Sparta is, and kind of how they eventually, you know, I don't know, combined with the other city-states of Greece to become actual Greeks, right? But there were many texts and times where Sparta was considered to be something of a little bit of a different type of Greek, of a different type of person, and they focused so much on their military and their diplomacy, and that's what you know, this civ would be mostly, you know, thinking towards being attached to, because Sparta would be obviously very focused on its military, right? The Spartans are known everywhere. If you don't have a team near you, if you're in the United States that's named the something whatever elementary school Spartans or high school Spartans, right? Like, that is just pretty uncommon. I mean, so many college teams, you got Michigan State Spartans and many others. I know I'm just naming the big one that I can think of off the top of my head, but it's a very culturally significant you know, a city-state and its own culture, and a civilization that really focused on everything being around its military, and I feel like diplomatically as well, they went out and had a lot of good diplomacy. They weren't as big on, you know, I guess you could maybe actually, you know what, I'm switching it, we're gonna go cultural, changing that, sorry, just thought about it again, because I think militaristic and cultural would make the most sense. Their culture was something that they held very dear to themselves, right? Like the way that they even trained their young men to prepare for battle, even their women, like, and I'm not just speaking about this because of the movie 300. That was very real. It was an area of study that I did while in college, and I can tell you that Sparta was a pretty unique and interesting place on all of its own, and should be able to be considered separate of the Greeks. And if not, then maybe it's I don't know, a different version of the Greeks, similar to how we have in the game, right, with different versions of Xerxes. Let them be the militaristic, cultural ones, and I think that you would be surprised with how much fun they would be. You give them the Spartans as their special units. You even maybe give them a unique ability that allows them to train units faster, or, you know, even maybe a unique quarter that's kind of like a training ground of some kind, you know, along with a barracks or something like that. I think it'd be awesome, and I would really love to see it. Now we're going to head into number 4, though. And number 4 is going to be a fun one as well. Probably one you've never really heard of, but it's called Kievan Rus. And these are the early Russians, the early people of Moscow in particular. They're an Eastern Slavic state that kind of formed around, again, where Moscow is and where even a little bit of current day Ukraine is, and it's a really cool and interesting time period for these people. They come around in the 1800s-ish and make their way through, a lot of the Dark Ages as well. But these people were very well known for actually their trading abilities, right? And I think that this would be a pretty, big thing to have in the game as an economic civ that does well on rivers as well across land. But, obviously there were plenty of rivers in this area. And, they also, you can see it right, like where Kiev is. That's where the Kievan part comes in here. And they were able to be, I think, militaristic as well, but not to the point where I thought that it would be necessarily important for them to be anything other than diplomatic as well. They were able to kind of create their empire and keep themselves in relevancy despite the Byzantine Empire, despite many different people from the outside trying to tear them apart. You have Vladimir the Great, being one of the big people or leaders that was connected to this area and to these people. And, their empire stretched all the way up into, the Nordic areas, into, I believe it's Sweden as well. So, and into the Baltics. So a really, really cool area and a really cool civ that I think could be added in here. Like I said, you could maybe push them into the exploration age, but they don't really do any of the exploration type things. It is very much just them controlling the rivers, controlling the economy, and controlling the areas around them through good diplomacy and keeping other major entities and empires at bay, and creating a really cultural big group that came of the Slavic people who were needing kind of an empire, with all the empire building going around, the Romans, the Byzantines, and so forth. So I think that would be a really fun and interesting one to be added into this game at some point, and would give us a little bit of a taste for the Slavic people. I think that would be awesome. The next one is going to be one that I didn't really know about, but I did a little bit of research on, and I found through actually the game files that you can have them as an independent state. Something that I've noticed in the game is that even for some of these civs that are, confirmed to be coming soon, right? So you have Carthage in Great Britain, Bulgaria and Nepal. I believe Carthage, I've seen Carthage and Nepal for sure. In game, so they are independent powers right now, but they're on their way to becoming civs, so I don't know if maybe they'll replace them with somebody else. I have no idea, but it could be interesting. But one that I found here at number 3, and I'm gonna probably butcher this, but is the Tiwanaku people, and they are in South America, in Bolivia, and they were also a pretty interesting spiritual people who really liked to, I guess, focus on, having good diplomatic relations, which I think would be kind of their very first thing. And then culturally, they have this stone that was called Stone in the Center. I think it was called by a Jesuit person. I'm, again, reading this one on Wikipedia, honestly, but I thought that these structures were interesting, and I figured if the different, people from Civilization, the devs, were to put them in here, that maybe I should look them up, and they are very interesting. There's a lot of little areas here by a lake where they found a lot of their ruins, and we don't know a ton about them, but we do know that, like I said, they had good relationships with the people around them for the most part. They were very much attached to some of the culture that we know for South America, around the Andes Mountains, and I don't know, their structures, their buildings and the different things that they have, that we have been able to find are really interesting, and they allow us to get a little bit of a look into this very, I don't know, Andean culture, right? That is kind of been seen with the Incas and what we have in the game a little bit, but still, allows it to be, I think, something that would be a little bit more separate and something that would be truly diplomatically and culturally significant, and would allow you to, probably have a really interesting, unique quarter based on some of these buildings. You could even potentially put in this thing called the Gate of the Sun as well, that is still standing today. I don't think that people would be too upset to have that, maybe even as a wonder, or if not, maybe even just a great quarter. This one was, again, the one that I probably know the least about, to be completely honest with you guys. I've studied a lot of ancient history, just not a lot of ancient South American history, to be honest with you. We just don't have as much in terms of records from that time period. And so I wanted to kind of represent just not a totally European mindset with these civilizations, and so I wanted to add these in here. This will probably be the one people will be most upset about. I did some research on it, but I did think that they would be interesting, and it would represent a different side of the Andean, people from the Andes Mountains culture. So got them added in here. At number 2, though, this one is a really fun one, and one that I'm surprised that hasn't been added before, is the Seleucid Empire. So this one is slightly Greek, but not really at the same time. It kind of developed as its own culture, right? Everywhere has a starting point. And Alexander the Great had a couple different major generals with him. And when he died and the Macedonian Empire got split up, you had the Ptolemaic Empire, the Seleucid Empire, and then the Macedonian, what was left, Empire, right? And there might have been one more as well, but I can't remember it right now. Either way, the Seleucids, the Macedonian general is Seleucus the First Nicator, and he was a really interesting man and somebody who, took over a lot of the eastern part, the last bits of what Alexander the Great kind of took over. His territory spread all the way from the Mediterranean Sea and up really towards, Macedon, honestly, all the way over to, touching on the Marian Empire as well. You got like Bactria, Sagartia, Babylon, the old Persian Empire, all of Mesopotamia, the Syrian Empire, right? And then, the Ptolemaic Empire, mostly took over Egypt. So, yeah, this guy is pretty awesome, and he had a huge empire that spread really far. It didn't last super long, but it was a major trading hub, and also a major military force as well. And it really took the Romans to come in and kind of destabilize and take over major parts of that region for it to collapse. So I would love to see this one added to the game. Like I said, I think another really interesting economic one. Of course, a lot of cultures have some economics, but this one was just so big. There were so many different routes, trading with India, trading with Rome, and the different Greek city-states with Egypt, right? There's the empire was just so large. It was hard not to focus on trade and to make that a major part of the, the economy of that empire, right? So, and then you have obviously the leader being a general. I could totally see them, having some sort of horse unit as the major unit that they would have, and then there's so many different, unique buildings and things that could come from this area that we haven't already seen either with the Greeks or with the different civilizations that we have from India. So I would love to see this one get added, maybe as a nod to, kind of the Middle East, Asian, European, mixing that we saw with this empire. And it would be really fun to have. So Seleucids getting in there. My last one's going to be the Gauls. And this may just be a personal one for me. Like I said, I studied a lot of ancient history, the Romans, and one of their biggest opponents were the Gauls. And the Gauls had a huge, like, I don't know, area that they were, kind of forced to defend together, right? There were different tribes within the Gauls. The Gauls were a bit more of a culture initially, before they, became more of a, I guess you wouldn't call them an empire, but an area, a group that came together. I don't even know how you would call it. Maybe a nation would be a good way to put it. And it took the Romans pushing up into, southern France and southern Germany, right, for this to cause the Gauls to kind of come together and be a sort of nation that could try to push back and ultimately keep the Romans at bay at different points. And there are a lot of different things that I think could be added in this one. This one is going to go into the militaristic area here for us. I think that's got to be number one, right? You've got to have maybe the warriors or even a commander as their special unit. There were plenty of them that were written about by the Romans, and that allows us to, get a good look into kind of their fighting style. And they almost have like a fervor about them, and I would love to see, that be added to either the unit or to the commander as like a special maybe ability or something. Once they get lower in health, they get stronger. We saw this with, I believe it was the Japanese samurai maybe in one of the last games. I would have to check on that one. But I do think that the Gauls would be a really fun militaristic civilization to be added to the game. And I would even give them also the tag of expansionists because of how much of Europe that they ended up controlling once they became again, one nation. You could maybe make them diplomatic just because they were able to really come together with all the different tribes, but at the same time, diplomacy didn't really work, when they were trying to defend against the Romans necessarily. So, and that may not be diplomacy's fault, but hey, just kind of throwing that out there. So, the Gauls end up number one on this list. Let me know which you guys think. Was this top 5? Some different civs that maybe you hadn't thought of, ones that you would like to see added to the game. Are there other civilizations that are from antiquity that you would like for me to discuss and put maybe on a list? Let me know, like I said, in the comment section below. But that is going to wrap it up for us on this one. So as always, thanks for watching. And from our house to yours, I hope you'll join me for one more turn.